I'm off on another adventure, this time to backpack the Pembrokeshire Coast Path, over 180 miles from St Dogmaels to Amroth in 13 days, carrying everything I will need on my back. It's April, the weather is grey and cold, and I'm wondering why I'm doing this. I have a sense of excited anticipation, but also some apprehension. I know this will be a challenging walk. I don't then realise how challenging this will be at times. I also don't realise then what a wonderful experience this would be, backpacking some of the best coastline you could wish for. So join me on a virtual backpack along the whole length of the Pembrokeshire Coast Path. It's a treat to be enjoyed. At 6:41 I catch the first train on my trip to Pembrokeshire. 3 trains, 2 buses, a taxi and a walk later, I arrive at the start point at St Dogmaels. The weather is already closed in and the rain starts as I start my walk. Just a short 3 miles to reach St Head and my stopping point for that night. I'm just wondering where best to pitch my tent in the rain when the owner offers me the use of a yurt, which he has just put up ready for the season. It's empty, but it's dry, and I welcome his offer. Day 1 proper, and I wake to the sound of pouring rain and strong winds pounding on the yurt. Having breakfasted and packed, I don waterproofs and set out. The going is really hard, a combination of driving rain in my face, strong winds, a muddy, slippery path and a very heavy pack, plus of course a route that goes up and down more times than an escalator. It quickly becomes a slog, and I just put my head down and keep walking. It seems cruel because this is potentially the best and most rugged part of the whole walk, and I couldn't really enjoy it as visibility is limited. It becomes a challenge just to reach my campsite at the end of the day, and again I wonder why I'm doing it. Then in the afternoon, the rain stops, visibility improves, and finally the sun makes an appearance, and I know why I'm doing it. The scenery is fantastic, with the ruggedness of the coast being picked out by the sun slanting across the rocks. Late afternoon, I pitched my tent in a wonderful spot with amazing views across Newport Sands and the coastline I'd walked earlier. It's been a tough first day, but I have a real sense of achievement, and I am rewarded with an amazing sunset. The evening is beautiful as I walk into Newport for food and drink. Day 2 is a 17-mile day, and I set out from Newport after an okay night. The day is bright and sunny, and I feel okay apart from aching a bit from yesterday's efforts. The walk is tough again, especially the climb up and over Diners Island. I pass a few walkers en route, though most of these are day trippers. It seems a long day with the constant climbs and falls and the constant weaving in and out of a million coves and inlets. And it's actually a bit of a relief to reach Fishguard. Once again, the scenery is amazing during the day, and Fishguard itself is better than expected, with a lovely walk around the old town and along the Marine Walk, which goes all around the headland with great views. The newer part of Fishguard is perhaps less inspiring, and I hurry through, stopping for food on the way. The final few miles, as I head towards Strumble Head, are thankfully a bit easier. But just before reaching Strumble Head, I turn inland to find my stopping point for the night, which is in fact a field on a farm. Day 3, and I'm up early to break camp and pack away my tent, which is wet with dew. By 7:30 I'm on my way to the coast path again, and soon pass the Strumble Head lighthouse. The path is once again winding and full of ups and downs, but the scenery is spectacular on this glorious sunny day. Once again I pass very few walkers, or indeed people, apart from on the beaches at Aberdraw and Abercastle. The warm weather is actually energy sapping, and the rough rocky path combined with my constantly wet shoes mean that my feet are becoming sore. However, I make good progress, and I arrive at Treffin in the early afternoon. The cove at Treffin, with its old mill and derelict cottages, is interesting and picturesque. I make my way inland to the main village and to my campsite, where I make the most of the time doing laundry and charging batteries. Then it's off to the pub for some food and a well-earned drink. While I'm there, I meet a couple who are doing the same walk, although using B&B rather than camping. We chat over a beer, and I head back to the tent, not knowing what was to happen during the night. Wow, what a night! Pounding rain, gusty gale force winds. My little tent was pummeled. Sleep was impossible, as the tent was making so much noise flapping about. I felt quite cut off, in the sense that to get out of the tent to even go to the toilet would have been impossible without getting soaked and letting rain into the tent. What if I hadn't pushed the tent pegs in enough and one came out? What if the tent leaked? But all was well. And when I woke, everything was still in place and dry. In fact, after the awful weather of the night, I woke to clear sunshine, although it wasn't to last. I have breakfast and break camp, and set off walking at 7:30, going initially down the road to the bay. I pass lots of cyclists on the way, as there is an event on. Soon I am out on the coast again, in the beautiful sunshine, until the clouds come, and then the rain. I walk most of the day in the most appalling weather, pounding rain, driving gusty wind that is so strong I have a job to walk against it. I fall over several times, not blown over, but because I have to lean into the wind, which would then suddenly drop, leaving me on my face. Occasionally the sun makes a token appearance, but not for long. The coastline is beautiful and rugged, reminiscent of the Lake District Mountains with its rocky outcrops. And there is a lot of interest to see, like Porthgain, and a myriad of remnants of the quarry industry. I would love to stay and explore more, but the conditions don't encourage it. Even taking photos is difficult, and yet in a strange way the conditions suit the terrain, really bringing out its character. Climbing over the last headland at St David's Head, it was difficult to put one foot in front of the other, such was the ferocity of the wind, and it was a relief when White Sands Bay came into view below. It meant that I was finally on the leeward side of the headland and out of the wind, and that last mile or two down to the bay was a delight to walk. I wake at 6 a.m. after a chilly night, and just as I was dressing and thinking I must pack away before it starts raining, it starts raining. Not heavy rain, but enough to wet the tent before I put it away. The first few miles of the day is easy walking, following the coast with views across to Ramsay Island, passing the lifeboat station and a nice remote and empty bay where I stop for elevenses. The coast here is again craggy, rugged and beautiful. Eventually I drop down into a lovely remote disused harbour called Porthclay, where there is a tea kiosk. I have tea and cake sat on the old harbour wall. Apparently it used to be the port for St David's, and many saints landed there. It is a great place to mooch around. After a short time I continue on my way, soon dropping into Carefy Bay, where I have intended to stop the night. As it's so early, I decide to keep on walking for a few more miles. I pass the memorial church to Non, mother of St David, and eventually reach Porthraw, where I make my way inland to a campsite at 9 Wells. Having pitched my tent, I take a walk into St David's to explore the city before retiring for the night. Day 6, and I'm up at 6:15 and out on the trail again by 7:30 on a cloudy morning. It didn't take long for the sun to appear, and it didn't take long for me to reach the coast path again where I left it yesterday. Heading round the headland for a mile and a half, I then drop down into Solva, where I hope to be able to get some breakfast. Nothing is open. Having started fairly level, it doesn't take long for the ups and downs to start again, particularly near Newgale. It was actually quite nice to drop down to the beach, where I knew there would be a mile or so of flat walking, as this is a long beach. I hope to find somewhere for brunch, but once again, nothing is there, so I just eat what food I have in my rucksack on the beach. Climbing over the next headland, it doesn't take long to reach Knowlton Haven, another interesting little inlet. And then I have a pleasant surprise when I come across the Druidson, a rather bohemian hotel. I stop for a beer. Shortly after, I reach Broadhaven, stopping on the way to chat to a couple about walking the coast path. I soon reach Littlehaven and then continue to the headland beyond, where I decide to stop for the night. I return to Littlehaven in the evening for some food and drink, and I am treated to a rather wonderful sunset. Day 7, and once again I'm up at 6 a.m. to pack away. Everything is again wet from heavy dew. The walking is more level today, with just a few undulations, and the granite of the north coast has given way to red sandstone. There are beautiful spring flowers all along the path again, and amazing views. I pass an interesting inlet at St Bride's Haven and continue to the campsite where I had intended to stop, but I decide to keep walking. Eventually I drop down to a little inlet where the Skomer ferry berths, and I walk up and over the headland where I sit and have lunch with beautiful views across the island. It gives me a chance to air my feet and to try and dry my socks that are wet from the dewy grass. After lunch, I continue round the headland for another few miles until I reach Marlow Sands, a fantastic beach, and there are amazing views from the coast path that skirts all around it. I walk inland to the village of Marlow, where I quickly find my campsite, one of the best I've stayed in, and I lay everything out on the grass to dry in the sun. In the evening, it's off to the pub for food, drink and football. Day 8, and I am up at 5:45 and out walking before 7. Today is a difficult day because there are 2 pinch points that I need to pass at low tide. It doesn't take me long to regain the post path at Marlow Sands, passing the disused airfield. I follow the coast path south on a cloudy morning, and when I reach the neck of the headland, I can see Dale down the valley just 15 minutes walk away, but it will take me 3 hours to reach it, as I'm walking all around the headland. The westward side of the headland is not particularly inspiring, but St Anne's Head, the southernmost point, is far more interesting with its lighthouses and coastguard cottages. Walking back along the eastward side, I come across an old gun placement and a fort at West Blockhouse Point. This is now owned by the Landmark Trust, and I am lucky enough to bump into a current tenant who invites me to look around the outside, including its amazing drawbridge. We have quite a long chat before I continue onwards and eventually walk into the town of Dale, where I treat myself to coffee and cake before making my way to the Pickle Ridge, the first of my low tide crossing points. By now the sun is out, and the tide is going out nicely. Walking through Monk's Haven with its amazing castellated wall, I meet a young man walking in bare feet. Apparently he prefers it, despite how stony the path is. Eventually I reach Sandy Haven Pills, my second low-tide crossing point, and am relieved to see the stepping stones are exposed nicely for me. An hour or two later, they are completely covered. Day 9, and I wake to heavy rain on the tent. I have to pack the rucksack inside the tent to keep things dry. No easy task. At 7:15 I'm out on the coast path again, but this is a day that will be different. This will be a day when I will swap the rugged, beautiful coast of Pembrokeshire for the industrial hinterland of the Milford Haven Inlet. It is a day of refineries, pipelines and tankers, all walked in pouring rain. I walk into Neyland, a spreading town with a large marina, and I stop at the cafe for a welcome bacon sandwich, cake and 2 large mugs of tea, and to charge my phone. I'm soaked, and the cafe owner offers to put some clothes through the dryer for me if I need her to. This is really kind, but I decline. By the time I leave the cafe, the rain has stopped and the weather brightens up, and I make my way out of Nayland, crossing the Cleddor Bridge into yet more urban sprawl as I enter Pembroke Docks. The route takes me round the harbour with its Martello Tower and defensive walls. I pass the imposing Pembroke Castle before continuing to my campsite, where fortunately it's still sunny and I can dry my clothes out and the tent in the sunshine. Day 10, and this is a continuation of yesterday as I make my way back out of the Milford Haven Inlet. I restock at the local shop and then make my way along a convoluted route crossing farmland with long wet grass and skirting round oil refineries and other paraphernalia. It wasn't an easy walk as the ground was lumpy. There were one or two interesting features, such as Pulcrocken Church, but generally I just want to get past all the industrial bits and get out on the coast path again. I reach Angle, where I'd intended to stop, but I decide to continue walking out to Angle Point, where I come across the old Point House Inn. This is a wonderful, quirky inn in a great position, and I ask if I can pitch the tent in their beer garden, and they agree. Day 11, and what a difference a day makes. I feel free. I'm out on the coast path proper again and clear of the industrial hinterland. And what a beautiful coast it is too, much more rugged and up and down than I'd expected for this part of the walk. I was out walking before 7, following initially the Angle Peninsula with some beautiful rugged scenery. I dropped down to Freshwater East, one of those lovely wide Welsh beaches favoured by surfers. I walked through some lovely big sand dunes before coming out onto the road that runs round the bay. I'd hoped I'd find a cafe, as I fancied brunch, but I couldn't see one. But then I spotted a trailer cafe, Cafe Moore, tucked away in a busy car park. Not long after, I reached Castle Martin and another cafe. Time for coffee and cake. I'd had to time my walk carefully here because I wanted to walk through the Castle Martin firing range. I made my way out to Stacked Rocks, laden with guillemots and razorbills. I stopped to look at the little church of St Martin and the deserted village of Flimston. Then there was the amazing Green Bridge of Wales, an amazing rock arch that is much photographed. There are crags, gullies, caves and inlets all along this part of the coast. It was a fabulous part to walk. Near the easterly point, I came across St Govan's Chapel, a beautiful and poignant church built out of the cliff face. I sat and looked down at the chapel for some time. It was mesmerizingly beautiful. St Govan was a 6th century monk, and it's said that he hid in a cave here to escape pirates who were chasing him. The chapel was subsequently built on the site. After 18 miles, I reached my campsite. What a great day this has been. Day 12 was cloudy but bright, and I initially dropped down to Broadhaven Beach, a beautiful wide sandy beach, clean with dunes behind, and the morning light was wonderful. The coast continued to be wild and rugged, although it was to become more commercialised as the day went on. I soon reached Barafundle Bay, said to be one of the best beaches in the world. It certainly was beautiful and unspoilt, as there are no roads to it. I take pictures and continue around the coast to reach Stackpole Quay. I know there is a National Trust cafe here, and I hope to be able to buy breakfast, but sadly it doesn't open till 10 a.m. I sit and make do with what food I have left in my rucksack, and then I continue on my way. The ruggedness, colours and strata of the rocks here is truly wonderful, and when combined with spring flowers and rape fields, they really do make a lovely scene. By the time I reach Freshwater East, the evidence of commercialisation has become clear, but the benefit of this is that there are at least shops and I can restock my food supplies. I pass Manorbier Bay, another lovely beach, with its castle inland of the beach. I reach Lidstep, another beautiful beach, but with even more caravans behind. I can see my finishing point for the day and could drop quickly down to it, but the coast path actually goes right to the tip of Giltar Point before dropping back into Penally, which is where I finish for the day. Once again, it was time to dry everything off in the sun before walking to the pub for food and drink. It's day 13 and I wake to the first proper sunrise of the whole walk. I'm up even earlier today because this is my last day and I'm travelling home. The first miles of the day are flat and easy along the beautiful Tenby beach to reach the town itself, which is still asleep. Tenby is a pretty town with its harbour and its pastel shaded houses. I had expected this to be a much flatter day, but in fact there were still quite a few headlands to climb over, although with paths lined with woodland or bluebells, this was no hardship at all. Eventually I dropped down to Saundersfoot, and from here the route takes an interesting twist following an old tramway line. This means no more climbing over headlands. We simply walk through them, through 3 tunnels, which eventually lead to Wiseman's Bridge. I then make my way along the seafront and over a final headland before dropping down through the trees into Amroth. With another walk along the seafront, I finally reach the end of my Pembrokeshire Coast Path adventure. So what are the takeaways from this walk? Well, it was an amazing walk along a wonderful, rugged, beautiful and mainly unspoilt coastline. The freedom of backpacking the whole route and being able to change plans along the way. The simplicity of just walking, eating, sleeping and being unplugged from modern life. Being able to rise to the challenges as they arose. Tough weather conditions and the seemingly relentless ups and downs and ins and outs of the coast path. Milford Haven, perhaps a low point for me, with its industrial nature. As far as high points go, there are far too many to even begin to mention. The challenge of finding places to restock on food, especially with remote camping sites. Lovely people along the way. Buses that stop anywhere you want them to. Mainly easy route finding. Overall, this trip, along with my other backpacking trips, are some of the best things I've ever done, and I will never forget any of them, especially the Pembrokeshire Coast Path. If you're thinking of trying backpacking, I would say just do it. You will never regret it.